G'day! Welcome to Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty. I'm back. I've had a few weeks off. I've been back home in South Australia, seeing my family. I went to the range with my dad, shot my little 22 pistol, knocked over some metallic silhouettes with the 357. But I'm back in Western Australia for the time being, although when I was away, it happened. The new gun laws were introduced into the Western Australian Parliament by the Police Minister, Paul Papalia, on the 20th of February. I was home in Napier, South Australia, watching very closely, watching his speech, watching him sweating, watching him thank the police profusely for their involvement in these new laws. So tonight, I am blessed and graced by the presence of two upstanding gentlemen who have been involved in the firearms community for forever, it seems, that's how they've described it. So without further ado, let me welcome my returning guest to the show, none other than Australia's #1 gun reviewer, Ozzie Reviews. How are ya?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me back. And hello to Graham as well. It's been a month or two since we've caught up. So
True.
Yes, my other guest is none other than the very distinguished president of the Shooters Union organisation, Graham Park. Thank you for joining me on my show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real privilege to be here with both of you. Aussie's done an immense amount for shooters in Australia, one by the quality of his reviews, which is well above most that I've ever seen. In fact, my friends in the US like his reviews because of the quality and the no BS style. And then he's also spoken out very strongly in favor of legitimate firearm owners, and then for all the work you do. So I feel privileged to be here with you both.
Oh, look at it. It's a love-in. See, there's no division here. We're all getting along just fine, setting an example to the rest of our lovely community. Now, that's what I want to talk to you both about tonight. So I am in Western Australia. You are both over east, as we call it here, but you've both been quite instrumental in what's happening here in WA in terms of calling out the government here. It is a one-party state. The Labor Party control both houses of Parliament in WA after the 2021 state election, which has to be said was an election based on keeping the border closed. They did not go to the election on the grounds of reforming firearms, nor did we see any of this. So shooters who voted for Labor at the last election to keep the border closed, this is what you get. If you don't do your research, if you do not know by now that neither major party are friends of shooters, well, now we are seeing firsthand what happens when you give ultimate power to a party who is ideologically opposed to private firearms ownership. Now, I want to go back a step and talk about the consultation process. So, Graham, Shooters Union, you put in a submission to the consultation paper, Reform of Firearms Laws, that they put out late last year and only gave us a month to respond to. And I think, Ozzie, you did as well. Graham, talk about what have you seen from your organisation in terms of consultation? Have you met with the minister? Have you heard from anyone over here? What has been the involvement? Steve Harrison, your rep, has been out on the ground here. What's been going on from your perspective?
Steve Harrison, our West Australian members rep, has been, as you say, out on the ground working with other groups and talking to politicians. He has had a number of meetings with politicians. However, none in both the Liberal Party, National Party, and the Liberal Democrats. He has met with all those and shooters and fishers over there. However, not one person from the Labor Party has been willing to meet with him, and the minister certainly has not been willing to meet with either myself. I was willing to fly over there, or Steve. And in fact, we generally don't get a response to emails or anything else.
Even your submission, I read your submission and you've made some really good points, especially in terms of the number of firearms someone can own, which we will talk about later. You also spoke about the fit and proper person test too, and the confiscation of private property. You didn't get a response from your consultation?
We got a response that said, we've received your submission. That's it. And which is about what you get with them. I think your comments that you made earlier before the show, that they'd already written the law before this was done, are pretty accurate. Now they'll say, no, we hadn't. Well, maybe they changed a couple of commas or something, but the general outline was all done, and the consultation being only a month long for something this radical shift. This is unheard of pretty much in any Western society, what they've done. And for them to do it with such a short consultation, they have ignored every single, not just from us, forget us, every single group that put in submissions. They have ignored everything, and not one thing changed from before or after that I can see.
I think your observations are spot on. I haven't seen anything that's changed from any of the submission, including my own. Ozzie, what about you? You put out a call to your followers to get involved, to flood their inboxes, have your say, especially these one-term wonders that we've got in the Labor Party that are getting a bit nervous about being re-elected. How did you find the consultation?
So I had two things happen. One was I had a lot of WA shooters contact me and say, Ozzie, what the hell do I do now? They're coming for our guns and everything like that, which in one sense I appreciate, but in another sense it frustrates me because of the amount of time previously, like even when you were running for the Liberal Democrats and we put out the call for people to help there, and the response was terrible of what it could have been and should have been, in my view. So that sort of thing frustrates me, but I'll still, be able to help them. But my hands are tied once the horse is bolted. And I say the horse is bolted because, like Graham was leading to, and yourself, is that these laws have already been written before the consultation process. And this is what committees do. Government committees, they meet together, and then they'll come out with their general guidelines of where they want a particular subject to go, and then they'll get some feedback. And what will happen is when that feedback comes in and it's contrary to what they believe, is they'll justify it by writing it off, going, no, well, we've researched this and X, Y, Z. So in other words, they'll say, no, we've researched 338 Lapua and it can defeat body armor at X amount of distance. So therefore, no, it is not to be in the hands of civilians. That'll be their view on it. So do you see what I mean? That's how these government organisations work, and the committees in particular work. So that was very frustrating, but I still guided people and said, well, look, like I've said numerous times, you got to go and you got to meet with your local member, and not just write an email and then get a generic response and go, oh, look, I've done my bit. That's not good enough. Like, when you get that generic email back, get on the phone. If that doesn't work, walk down to your local member, and be there politely, walk in the reception. If they're busy that day, come back the next day, then the next, because you have to be like the opposite end of the spectrum, the woke left, who just don't give up. They are relentless in their, pestering of politicians to see their side of things and get their views. So that was the first part of it. But then the second part of it was I actually had guys who then came back to me later after taking on that advice, and they said, mate, you won't believe it. Like they spoke about, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I should have written down some notes, but I'm not that good at writing notes. I like to just go off the top of my head with things. But I can't remember her name now, but one of the Labor sitting MPs over there had supposedly only just won the seat by 150 or 100 votes. And they were saying that she's received 335 at the time of talking with this guy about it, complaints from shooters in her electorate saying, I'm not going to vote for you again. So therefore, if that's anything to go off from the previous election, well, her seat's gone. She's gone. So they actually said it's actually working. Like, there are some really worried people in the Labor Party, and that's what people have to understand is, yes, a political party does have its general direction, the way it's going, and their belief on a certain topic. However, when you start rattling the cage enough and those individual members are worrying about getting re-elected at the next election, that's when you start to have some influence from there. And that's how it works. Like, if you turn up to your local member's office and you get an appointment with them, but then say 10 of you, even just 10 of you, go in there and discuss what's really on your mind, the impact of that is massive. And I think a lot of shooters are starting to catch on to that now, which is great. So that's been my experience with it so far as it relates to WA.
And I think the point about these sitting politicians getting scared, maybe they've realized it's not a good idea to give the police the power to write the laws in which they are going to regulate. We are in a situation in Western Australia where it's no longer the elected representatives writing laws for the people they are meant to represent. We are in a position where the police, the authority, the enforcers of the law, are writing laws that they deem to be fit for them, not for the people. It's completely flipped. And I've seen that. I've been in WA for 4 years now. My time is coming to an end here, especially with these laws. But to see a democratic society go from being, that's why I ran for politics, because I wanted to be a voice specifically for shooters. That's my passion. But I wanted to be a voice for all of those that the government hurt during the pandemic and some of the overreach and the trampling on liberties, including our farmers. That's not what politics is in WA at the moment. It's a police state, and it's not just firearms. There's done other stuff here, which I've spoken about on my show before, other shows before. But Graham, from your perspective, being involved in this space for 15 years on behalf of Shooters Union, does it terrify you to think that the police are the ones with the pen writing the laws, giving it to a politician to read out in Parliament that we have to abide by?
Well, sadly, it's so common around Australia in different states. It's endemic. It's not just West Australia. It's endemic. Yeah. And in Queensland, as an example, I have literally sat in meetings with the police minister where I'm on the advisory council and have been with the last 6 police ministers. But I've sat in meetings with the police minister, and the police minister has openly said, look, my job is to be here and do whatever the police want me to do. I'm here to do it. And a person from another large non-shooting organization, a commercial organization, leaned over to me and said, so why the hell do we need a police minister? We may as well just have the commissioner here. And while that's an aside and he was making a smart comment, it's a very dangerous thing. Of course, police can make suggestions of things they see problems with, but it's not in any Western society, you cannot have whether it's the police or other bureaucracies making laws and literally writing them. In the case of WA and others, they're literally writing them. In fact, if we go back to before 96, and I'll try not to bore you, but you go back before then, all the laws that you were given or forced upon you in 1996 were about running around as police ideas and proposed police-driven legislation before that. And then when John Howard and co said, oh, we want to do a whole lot of, they just threw it all in the bucket and said, here. And effectively, the federal government said, let's adopt everything. Was it checked for evidence-based? No. Anything else? And it's like Ozzie was saying a minute ago about certain calibers and things like that could defeat body armor. Well, I happened to be living in the US many years ago when body armor started to take off. In fact, I've even been in demonstrations with law enforcement watching someone shoot themselves with a handgun while wearing it as a sales demo, which is pretty crazy to watch. But not as crazy as doing it, especially when it knocks you on your backside. But with that said, the humble 22 Magnum was able to defeat, and I've seen them done, of the early body armor that everyone started to wear over there, and everyone was like, don't say anything, but FMJ 22 Magnum zips right through it. I mean, that's a rimfire, and for the non-gun people, it's a baby round. It's not big enough to really kill even pigs much with it. It's very small. It's for very small varmints and pests. And so they will pretty much say whatever they want. I mean, any firearm can be misused. I'm not, the paranoia that comes out of this what if thinking is quite incredible. Based on that, we shouldn't have cars.
Yeah. Well, I've categorized it in my head as an immoral solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I feel what they are doing here is completely immoral. They are stripping people of their liberties to try and solve a gun crime problem that is not being carried out by law-abiding firearm owners. And I know we have said this when I worked at SSAA over 10 years ago now. That was our line. Like, less than 3% of crime is committed by, illegal firearm. All those statistics that we quote, and you see people's eyes glaze over because it doesn't mean anything to them. The left win votes, and they win the people on emotion. And that's what I've been trying to do with my Lady Liberty stuff and my campaign, is telling the stories about this is why I shoot. This is why I hunt. It's spending time with my dad. When I went home, we went to the range. We had the best day out. No one got hurt. It's something that I do as part of my culture. I'm Italian. I've got a Beretta shotgun waiting for me at home. Telling these stories to people, that's when they start to empathize with the situation. What do you guys think, as two people from over East, what do you think of the approach of the shooting organisations and the shooters in general in WA? How have we handled it? What could we have done better? What do we do now? What do you think? Because you both care about shooters. Putting aside all the bullshit and all the problems and the issues and the personality clashes or whatever, what do you think we can do? Or is it too late? Because this is coming over the border. We've spoken about this. Both you and I have spoken about this off air, Graham and Ozzie. It's not just WA. They are coming for every state and territory. And I hate to break it to you, the Liberal Party, they don't care either. They are not going to be the saviour for shooters. So for people in WA, they have the Liberal Party and Nationals, they haven't come out with their own alternatives. They haven't said they'll scrap it. They're saying, oh, we'll wait and see. That's not good enough. You either have principles and you'll come in and defend, or you're going to sit back and do the populist thing, which is why the Liberal Party lose election after election after election. I'm sorry, I just had to get that on the record. But what do you guys think we can do now, especially in WA, when the red tide is coming?
Do you want me to go first there, Graham?
Yeah.
Yep. Look, I think if we can rewind things a little bit, when there was the petition against the WA laws, and out of the 80,000 licensed shooters on average that you've got over there, or approximate numbers, there was like 13,000 signatures, and I was told by a few people that 13,000 signatures on a petition is unusual good response. But my response to that was, well, it's still not good enough. Out of 80,000 shooters, there should have been at least 60,000, at least, on that petition. And my belief is that every single range, I don't care if they're a SSAA range or they're another independent range over in WA, who they are, every time someone comes in to sign in on that range, that's my view is that petition should have been put in front of them. Hi, would you like to just sign our petition? Oh, I don't have a 338, I don't care. Well, I don't care about that, but would you still sign it to help shooters push back who do own those calibers? That's how it should have been. It should have been an absolute united front, where just every single person was just sharing, spreading that petition. I mean, yeah, it was a good response, but it was nowhere near what it should have been. And the thousands of people that would go to the ranges across WA over the space of the weekend could have been more adding on to that petition. I don't know, I'm not in WA, but were there billboards? Was there any billboards with advertising going, sign the petition, fight against WA's unjust laws against licensed shooters? That sort of thing is what I see as a big failure here in Australia, in general, with a lot of organisations, is they don't put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. And they have the money to do it. And for some reason, they hang on to it like it's a pot of gold, and they don't want to start spending it. And it's like, guys, you've got to create the awareness, because, look, I was driving up the Cunningham Highway there, Graham, which, Graham's familiar with. and there's this sign just in the middle, like that it's a billboard, and it's got ban racing whips. You know what I mean? So
I know.
obviously from like the Animal Justice Party or someone equivalent, or Greens or whoever, it doesn't say who it's from, but you see what I mean? Someone is paid for that, and there's thousands of people a day going past that, and there's that subliminal messaging. They're always seeing it as they go past. So why aren't there, billboards on the pro side of firearms or whatever, showing, perhaps a father and son, father and daughter out camping and plinking with a 22, or you know what I mean, like that fight back. So I just had to sort of, paint the picture with that to then come to the conclusion that I've got now. And that is, I believe that the horse has bolted in WA, but I also believe in not giving up. So if you're watching this and you're in WA and you haven't gone to see your local member yet, it's sort of like, I like to compare it with, say, a football team, right? So you're playing, there's only like 2 minutes left, and the other team is, say 20 points ahead. And you're thinking, there's no way we're going to get there. But do they just walk off the field? Do they just go, we're not going to win? Well, no, they still try to get another try or something like that. So in other words, don't give up. Keep going, keep going. So get your friends together, get your family together, go down and see your local member. I don't care even if it's the same local member that's frightened about losing their seat because they've already had 300 odd people come and see them, or complaint letters. Doesn't matter. Make it even more. Make the impact bigger. Go down and see them. Do not stop. All you got to do is just put yourself in the position and go, okay, if I was that politician, what would make me change my view or remember a certain topic? And it would be, okay, do that. So in other words, organise people to go down and see that local member, get friends and family to write emails, to telephone, leave messages saying, I will not support you if you support this bill. Even if they support the bill, it doesn't matter. They have still had the impact of numerous amounts of people getting the message across. That's all you can legally do. And obviously, I'm a big advocate for doing everything by the book.
Graham, what would Graham do?
I think I made a suggestion earlier in the day. I would agree with Ozzie. Look, there needed to be a lot of work done. And sometimes people will say to us in Shooters Union, they'll say, oh, you guys get this done in Queensland or that done. Well, you know what? We've been out there for between 15 and 20 years. I can't remember. But we're doing that. And I'm in Parliament House probably once a month when it's sitting. I'm having lunch at Parliament House tomorrow in the dining room, and with some opposition leaders. And why am I doing that? Why are we doing that? It's not about me, but we're doing it to keep that awareness. But then there's also what Ozzie talked about the billboards and the petitions and everything else. I was in Switzerland when they were having a referendum to see about whether they should start abiding by some of the EU gun laws. Now, in the referendum, they ended up losing. But I can tell you there was billboards in every railway station, every gun shop, every gun club. There was stuff everywhere, and I was amazed how well organized it was. In the end, something like 38% of the adult population voted against it. Now, I don't know how many people own guns in Switzerland, but I'd suggest they had pretty much all the people that own guns voted against it, and probably a lot that didn't, which goes to Ozzie's point. It shouldn't have been 13,000. It should be 50, 60,000 or better. Or it should have been more than 80,000 because you got all the family of those people who shouldn't want to see it. And a lot of people who would never own a gun should be signing against it. But then we get to the horse bolting part. Okay, they've put their thing out. So what I'm finding now, or we're finding, is people go, oh, well, it's too late to do anything. No, it's not. I mean, that's very defeatist. Does it mean it'll go away? No. It's highly likely it'll go through. However, there's a lot of very nervous Labor members, single-term ones, as you mentioned, especially. But there's a lot of them very nervous. And if you go down and you talk to them, or like Ozzie says, take a few friends, make an appointment. If you live in that electorate, they're pretty much going to have to make an appointment to see you at some point. And you just say, look, we're not happy with this bill for boom, boom, boom reasons. It's atrocious. And if you vote for it, we will not only not vote for you in the next election, we will actively campaign against you. And put that part in. Then let's assume in a month or 6 weeks, the bill comes up and it passes. You send an email or a message to that politician and say, hi, this is so-and-so. I was in your office on such and such date about this. I see that you chose to vote for it. Please be reminded that not only will no one in my family or myself be voting for you, we will actively be campaigning against you with anyone who will run against you. Because what are you doing with that? You're saying, oh, you're just being narky after you lost. No, you are making sure they have pain so that they don't want to do it again, because who says this is the worst thing they want to do? Because next year they're not going to say, oh, it's 10 guns or 5 guns. The next move will be, oh, 5's too many. Who needs 5? Yeah. That Aussie, he only needs 3 on his farm. You know, that Kate, oh, she only needs 2. And that, because the same argument as someone not needing more than 5 is very valid at why you don't need more than 1 or 2. The exact same argument is there. No private property should there be a limit on. I run a farm. What are they going to come on next and tell me how many chainsaws I can have? Ozzie runs a farm. They're going to tell you you can't have another 2 utes because it's too much diesel use for the carbon. That's what and unfortunately in WA, even some of their own farming groups went along with this garbage instead of pushing back. You can push back without winning, but you're also making them realize they pay a price when they do that. The other thing is I would be specifically putting pressure on the Liberals and the Nationals. Yes, I know there's not many of them, but I will lay London to a brick that the Liberals vote for this when it comes to Parliament, regardless of all the sounding things. However, the Nats might not. The Nats get some pressure. They realise in their hometowns, they're going to cop so much grief. And unfortunately, a lot of people won't wake up till after it happens. They'll go, it doesn't bother me, I got a farm, or I've got a this, or I join a club or something. Doesn't affect me. And then the same person will put up a post on their Facebook saying something that's not approved by the West Australian government. And under the new legislation, that will be a reason that you are no longer a fit and proper person. As an example, I was in the US a few months ago, and I was taken out by a machine gun collector and 2 of his friends who are both state legislators. So they are members of parliament in our terminology. And we were shooting machine gun. Completely legal, everything above board. There were actually a couple of state troopers came by and, hung out and wanted to play with them. So everything was above board. However, let's say I go on Facebook in West Australia and I live there and I say, hey, I had a great time in the States doing this. I wish we could do that here. We really should be able to do that here. It's crazy that it's illegal. Ooh, I'm encouraging illegal activities. There goes my fit and proper. That's how bad we're at the point of. Or I say something about one of their other policies may have nothing to do with guns. They go, that's offensive. Now, I do think there's a chance the Nationals could be influenced to vote against it. Every single politician that votes against it should be treated like a hero by shooters, even if they're dragged screaming and kicking to that no vote. Every single one should be congratulated after the fact and should be encouraged, because we want to encourage, just like a parent, you want to encourage good behaviour and discourage bad behaviour. And this legislation is some of the worst behaviour I've ever seen by an Australian state.
Let's talk about the new legislation. So it was introduced in the Parliament on the 20th of February. It's important to note it is not law yet. It is a bill. It's in its draft form. It hasn't passed, so it is not law. We are still operating under the old Act from the 70s. I've had a few people contact me about that. So just want to make that clear. The first part before they introduced the bill was this gun amnesty or gun buyback, which is more accurately called gun confiscation without proper compensation. That's what I've been calling it because you call it what it is. Now, they put out a table saying how much they will give for firearms based on the type. They also said firearms over 6 years and under 6 years. Now, it's important to note that is not the age of the firearm, it's when it was registered. So if you have a 50-year-old revolver that you only registered in the last 6 years, they are offering you a different amount. This is how crazy it is in WA at the moment. They are not even offering based on the true value of the firearm. Now, back in 1996, at the time, they did. They read the magazines. They read the shooter that I used to write for and looked at the prices. They talked to dealers. They examined everything to offer what was fair compensation, despite the fact that it shouldn't have even been happening in the first place. That's another argument to have another day. But at the moment, we have the gun confiscation scheme where the government is encouraging people to hand in firearms that they no longer want, and they'll give them a price paid for by the taxpayer. One can argue, is that a good use of taxpayers' money in a cost of living crisis? I certainly don't think so. So, Graham, in 1996, I remember, I'm old enough to remember my dad being very upset at being treated like a criminal, which is why I got this passion in me. What did you see happen back then compared to now?
As far as compensation, what they did is, knowing the level of resistance, outrage by shooters, they went and they actually hired, or not, yes, it was hired, knowledgeable dealers and valuers, and they went from their values. And whilst there's no such thing as a buyback because they didn't own them, that at least the compensation was commercially correct. And this is really an insult, but I would hesitate to say that in one way. What it is, it's pretty much legalized robbery. However, they don't want you to hand them into them. What they're doing is lowballing you to push you to go to the dealers and hoping they won't have to spend that money at all on it. And I don't know why anyone would do it till the absolute last minute, because you don't even know that draft bill that was introduced. You keep pressuring these local Labor members and different ones, you may find it gets a couple of tweaks. You may find there's a little out, because what politicians always do is they're looking for the press release. They want the big announcement. They want the press release. They actually don't really care what happens behind it, because this has nothing to do with public safety. That's the big lie. You got to understand, they hate guns. They hate the people that own guns. Therefore, why would they want to spend money administering a fair system of firearms regulation? They just want it to be so difficult that you don't want them. And now that they've got a fixed number, I would suggest within 5 years or less, you will see those numbers reduce. You will see, apparently it's 5 for target shooters and 10 for farmers.
Yes.
You're going to see, why would a farmer need 10? That's the next one they'll go after. They only gave them that to separate them out. You'll see, bring it into line, and there'll be 5 each. Then once they get that, it'll be 3. It'll be 2. And to compete, you could literally use more guns than that in one day at a range competing.
Yeah. Speaking of the limits on firearms, so another thing that's been happening is that the government has been pointing to a Law Reform Commission report that looked at the Firearms Act. Professor Augusta Zimmerman was the Law Reform Commissioner at the time. And one of the recommendations, Recommendation 54, there should be no upper limit on the number of firearms a single firearm license holder may possess. Straight from the recommendations. They are not even adhering to the recommendations from their own Law Reform Commission that they invested in to look at these laws back in 2016. They're picking and choosing what they want to do based on their own ideology, which, as you said, Graham, they hate people with guns, they hate civilians owning guns, they don't want us to have guns. The sooner people realize that this is not I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat, this is reality. This is the Labor Party ideology. It's Fabianism. This is what they do. And they've weaponized the media. They've put out all this crazy, scary gun fear porn to get the general public to think, oh, there actually is a problem with guns. Okay, set a limit on them. Here's our little survey that we did to back us up. Away we go. No. We have enough people. There are enough of us. There's enough money going around in this organization, this community. Let's fight back. Ozzie, what do you think, as someone who reviews firearms for your passion, what do you think about someone contacting you saying, I can only have 5 guns, what do you recommend I have? Did you ever think you would be in Australia where that is the question that you will likely be getting?
Yeah, I did, because each year since 96, I mean, I was an adult in 96, so I've seen over the years just continual restrictions, even when there's no examples or an incident to justify it. So the restrictions keep coming. I mean, it was back in, 2016, I did that last Australian shooter video where I predicted what will happen. Should have heard some of the comments, people, oh, you're out, you're lost your mind, as if they'd ever come for bold actions. Really? How's that working for you, WA now? As if they just want the semi-autos, as if they're going to take, a bolt action, hunting rifle away. All right, well, in WA, like, try to get a 300 Remington Ultra Magnum or something like that, It's just, like, I don't understand why shooters have to wait until these examples are proven to them before they get up off the couch and actually do something. Like, has the time since 1996 not taught you anything? If you're not old enough to remember 1996, go off the experience of myself or Graham, who, and I say this respectfully, Graham has been around longer than I have. But you know what I mean? Like, go off the experience of the older generation that have seen the restrictions and they know the gameplay. Just as I've learnt the gameplay in my adult life, like, learn from us. This is what I say to the community. Like, and just look at the restrictions that have come ever since. Like, who would have ever thought there would be bolt action restrictions in WA? And as I've said to people as well, if you are that delusional that you think this is going to just stop at the current calibers that they've mentioned there, you're a fool. Unfortunately, my view is you are a complete fool. Because what will happen now is it'll come down the line, 300 Win Mag, 308. Because why? 308, military caliber, has been for many, many years. 303s, military caliber, get rid of them. I mean, even if they wanted to do a scaremongering campaign, which we all know they're great at doing, they'll grab the 223, 556 and go, this is the round of the AR-15 assault rifle that all the mass school shootings are done with in the US. They start promoting that here, you watch 223 go as well. I mean, I remember, this is going back about probably, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago or so now, and there was a news article on a guy. I honestly, you would think I was making this up. It's so far-fetched. But he's found a 22 round on the street and handed it into police. So the news article was about this high-powered ammunition that was found just on the street. But the worst thing about that article is he said in the end that he's seeking some counselling. And I'm just going, what the hell? Like, and you can't make this stuff up. Like, I don't know if it was someone's submission to drama school or something, but this was just insane. But that's the reality of some of these people.
The word snowflake comes to mind.
It's not even that. It's just sleet. Like, it's just,
you don't as the snowflake.
Yeah, I just can't believe it. But this is what we're up against here. There are genuinely people like that in the community, yes, very much hate firearms and will go out and try to fight as hard as they can. I mean, I see in WA they must be a little bit worried because I see they had what was his name? Walter, is it the Walter?
Walter Mikac.
And look, I've never met Walter, and I'll say this now: like losing family members, whether it's to someone being shot and killed, or even in a car accident or something like that, terrible circumstances. But I will be very blunt here: because you lose a family member to a shooting, doesn't make you a firearms expert. If you lose a family member to a car accident, all of a sudden you're not a mechanic. You don't know all the ins and outs of cars and advising the government petitioning them to ban certain vehicles and that. Yeah, you had some unfortunate circumstances happen to you, 100%, and I'll never disagree with that. I couldn't imagine, I mean, I don't have kids, but I couldn't imagine losing a child to anything. It would be very, very, very hard. But I would also look at the reality of it and go, well, am I really qualified to comment on this? Well, no, unfortunately, you're not. It doesn't automatically give you a qualification. I mean, you lose a family member to a medical in practice. Well, are you suddenly a doctor and advising surgeons on what they should and shouldn't be doing in surgery? Well, no, you're not. That's the harsh reality of all of this. And I think that shooters need to just be factual, with their arguments and look at it, because the first thing that any shooter can usually debate with a non-shooter is, okay, tell me your understanding of firearms. Usually, when I've done that, when someone's criticised me about my views on firearms, oh, I don't know, but I don't care because they just need to be banned. Well, sorry, we can't have a conversation because you have no idea about the subject, and then you just shut it down right there. So these people need to be called out for their actual knowledge because they have zero knowledge. And it's about time, in my view, that people who have knowledge and practical understanding of firearms, we should be the ones who are relied on to make recommendations on the laws. I mean, we've seen in every single state the contradictions. I mean, look, I've posted about it numerous times about the contradictions in the laws, and people have been critical of that, going, oh, don't give them ideas and all that sort of thing. But once again, I shut that right down by going, okay, so what's running and hiding done so far for everyone in WA, for example? It just doesn't work. It doesn't matter what you promote, what you don't promote, what you hide, what you're out in the public with. These people are coming for your guns, regardless. And the one thing that we have here in Australia that makes them aware of everything that you have as a licensed shooter is registration. So not only do the anti-gun mob who meet with the various firearms registries know what you have, you've also got the importation, so customs, and also them clearing something for relevant use here in Australia. So they know all the firearms that are coming in from Turkey and everywhere else. They already know. So that's why, I laugh when people say, like on my channel, oh, don't show them that. Like, are you serious? Like, we've had registration since '96. They already know because it's already approved. So, it's those sort of things that very much frustrate me, Kate. And I just wish that shooters would just have a little bit of passion and a bit of fire in their belly. And I'm not saying by going out yelling, screaming, or being rude to people like that, but just have some get up and go and some motivation in you to do the things that, like what Graham was saying, and like some of the examples that I've done and said, like, just do something, because they spend more time whinging on Facebook or criticizing other shooters, or like you were saying, like, people who aren't affected by laws won't help that area of shooting. So if it's something with the rifle shooters or the shotgunners and the pistol shooters, like, it's not affecting us. But come on, like, you can't all be that mindless to not see the light and go, this is what they're doing. They're creating division. So all we've got to do as licensed shooters is just no more division. That's why, if I've got an issue with, perhaps like an organization, right? How about just focusing on some of the positives and going, I'll still stand with them and vote with them as one on this. this is what needs to happen. We all need to come together as a community, because we can talk to the cows come home on these live feeds and all this sort of thing. That won't mean a thing when we're handing in our last 22, because that's what they do. They've got psychologists who sit back and advise as well, and they look at ways to divide and conquer. It's just an old age strategy, and this is what they're doing very, very well, because they did it in '96. Like Graham said about WA, look at the farmers over there. Well, let's buy the farmers off. Let's give them double the amount of firearms. So that'll make them go, oh, okay, well, that's not too bad then. It's like having two children, and, you're giving more to the other one to get a bit of support, and then you concentrate on the other one to come down on a little bit harder. That's exactly what we're seeing in WA. Well, the two kids aren't going to stand up to you, are they? Because you've already bought one off, so then you've only got one to worry about. And that's what they do, just on a greater level with firearm owners, in my view.
So I wanted to just have a quick talk about some of the things that they are going to do with us over here. And Graham, you touched on it before about using someone's views, attitudes, and opinions as part of the fit and proper person test, where the government can be the arbiter of what is acceptable public opinion and what's not. I've already had people contact me saying, you're done. You're not getting a firearms license in WA, Kate, because I've shared quite a bit criticising the government of both sides. I don't just pick on one side. If I disagree with their approach and their principles, I'll call them out on it. Did you ever think, well, maybe you did think that in Australia one day you would see a government use our views, attitudes, and opinion against us? Is this a social credit system occurring in Australia?
Oh, definitely. And no, it doesn't surprise me at all. Saddens me. It doesn't surprise me. All you've got to do is go back. A recent example, during COVID, we had two members during COVID who went to the anti-compulsory lockdown type protests. They did not commit an offence by going to those protests. I mean, they weren't arrested, charged, nothing. Both of whom were filmed at those, and I think they might have spoken or something. And both were then told that their license was being suspended, or their license wouldn't be renewed. I can't remember which, because of their public views. Now, we ended up helping them fight that with lawyers and win. And I've got to say, in fairness to the state weapons branch, they agreed at higher levels that was an overreach. However, then we can look at certainly there's lots of other examples. Unfortunately, we had another member who his license was suspended or not renewed because he had written an article on Twitter saying that Australia should change its laws to allow self-defense to be a reason for owning a firearm. The funny part of this, and Ozzie may remember it, is that it turned out not only were they wrong ethically in saying that, because the High Court has ruled that there's an implied freedom of especially political speech in Australia. Now, what they found when they investigated was it was actually a different person with the same name who happens to be a fiction novelist in England and was talking about English laws. I mean, so it wasn't just wrong morally, ethically, it was actually just wrong. And this is the scary part, because what happens when they start misusing this sort of social credit nonsense against people and they get the wrong person? I mean, it's bad enough if they get the right person, but if they get the wrong person, which they inevitably will, and I think it's horrendous, but sadly it was not a major surprise.
Well, I don't know if it will hold up. I mean, like you said, we have the right to political expression in Australia. freedom of speech. It's a liberal democracy. So are we really at the point now where we're going to have a team of officers scrolling our social media feeds and going, oh, she said that she can't be trusted with firearm? That's the level that we're at now.
I think you'll find they're already doing that. And as Ozzie knows, that will it hold up? Here's the thing. If they bring in these laws tomorrow and you go and apply for a new license under those laws, I bet you they do give you the license, because they're not going to do this straight away. It might be in the act, but they will let it get embedded and solid for a while. And we've seen this process in the East, haven't we? They let it sit there for a while, and then they'll gradually use it to target people. So it would not be now, it'll be in 2 or 3 years. And in that time, people will tell you, "I'll see, Kate, they're not using that. They didn't really mean it that way, blah, blah, blah," until the day they start using it. And you're right about the freedom of speech issue, but that's going to require people taking them to court. And in Queensland, during COVID, the Queensland government and the Queensland Police Service and the ambulance service told their employees that they had to get this extra vaccination or lose their job. This is not a vax thing, but it's an example on this. Most of those people complied. Some didn't and left the service or the force. And some took them to court. And everyone laughed. And, you don't have a hope because you've already signed something saying you'll get vaccinated to start working there. Well, just last week, the court ruled, hey, you violated the human rights legislation of Queensland doing this. That has opened up the can of worms for companies, private companies, and other government departments in Queensland. It's if you've got a twisted sense of humor, there's a certain level of amusement watching the scrambling going on before the lawsuits and the class actions start hitting. It's going to be a lawyer's picnic. However, what that says, take that to WA with this, it could take 2, 3, 4 years to work, 5 years to work through a situation where it gets to that. And I would suggest that given WA's lack of protective laws on certain issues such as right to privacy and human rights, it may end up having to go to a federal court. And federal courts are notoriously hesitant and basically won't step in on a state issue. If it's kept purely within the state, they will leave it alone. When your police minister doxed all the shooters in West Australia and published documents that within 30 minutes our office was able to start identifying addresses, and within an hour we had actually had members who were able to say, yes, that is correct, that's my, and had the correct category of firearms there. So they did that, doxed those people. We went to lawyers, we spent, I can't remember, some $15,000, $20,000 on what we considered, what we were told, with the single best group of lawyers in West Australia on this. They came back and told us what we sort of thought in the first place, that because WA doesn't have a Privacy Act, you can't do this. Now, all the experts, the same ones that tell Ozzie he doesn't know what he's talking about, all those same experts, they decided to email us and tell us that we didn't know what we were talking about because under Commonwealth law, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Commonwealth law had nothing to do with it. Commonwealth law on privacy only has to do with Commonwealth issues. But the average person is not a lawyer. They don't get that. Now, we are having those same lawyers revisit that at the moment based on the fact that it turns out the police told him it was not a good idea before he did it. That may change things, but still, it's a hard battle. And why should West Australians or any Australians have to spend $50, $100, $200, $300,000 of their money to defend a right they already have?
Well, thank you for sticking up for Western Australians after that horrific doxing event. I remember that day so vividly in my mind. I couldn't believe that this was happening, looking at these maps, and you could pinpoint people's homes. And then only a few weeks later, someone got broken into, set on fire, and his firearm stolen. Now, that's why I can't take these politicians seriously when they claim it's for public safety, these new laws. You didn't give a flying fuck about public safety when you printed that map, excuse my French. So how the gall of them to use that now as the reason for these new laws, it's insulting. And that's how they treat Western Australians. I was saying to Ozzie, I've had a few nights talking to him about how hard it has been living here because of the way the government treats the people. And it's time that we remind the politicians they represent the people, they work for us. Make politicians accountable again. Make them hear us because they are not ruling with an iron fist. This is not a one-party state, even though it looks like it.
It looks like that to us.
It looks like it, but it's not. It's still a liberal democracy. This is still Australia. What the hell is going on? When did we get to the point where we're letting governments change our culture, where they're letting governments take away what we've had for our generation, taking it away from the next generation? That's what I'm fighting this issue on. It's not just about guns. And Graham, you said to me on the phone the other day that we are just a canary in the gold mine. Shooters are the canary in the gold mine. Can you please explain that analogy? Because I thought it was just so perfect.
The expression, the canary in the coal mine, is in England, all the coal mines in the north of England. There's a problem with coal mining, and it's called coal gas, they used to call it. But basically it means certain gases will form in a mine and there's no oxygen. If you walk in there, there's no odor, there's nothing. You won't know until you just collapse. So what they did, and they did this up until World War II pretty much, is they would have a 2 or 3 meter long stick, and on the end of that was a bird cage with a couple of canaries in it. And they would walk along slowly, and I'm not kidding, go look it up, go check Mr. Google, and they would have the canaries out. And the canaries are very sensitive to oxygen changes. And so they would fall over. So they'd literally see the canaries fall over. For animal lovers amongst us, when they pulled it back quickly, the canaries did recover. But so there weren't actually that many canaries hurt doing it, but they would collapse. And so that it got the expression that if you're the first one they experiment on, that you're the canary in the coal mine. And shooters have been the canary in the coal mine for all Australian freedoms since 1996. What we experienced in 1996, the rest of Australia experienced over the last 3 years. You know, with restrictions, with being pushed around, being done everything, and no one likes it. And that's why you're seeing these politicians run for the hills now. You know, Mr. McGowan over there got in with this great majority, and then suddenly one day goes, oh, I'm tired. I mean, pull the other one, it plays Dixie. Maybe he was a little bit worried about that court case like the one in Queensland that's probably coming in West Australia shortly.
Yes, Mr. McGowan, 75% of the workforce were mandated to have 3 injections here. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in WA. I did also want to talk to you both about the National Firearms Registry. Now, registration always leads to confiscation. Please remember that. We're seeing that happen in WA. I think that the fact you have a firearms license is more than enough information that the authorities need. It doesn't matter if you have one or you are a licensed firearm. They don't need to know what make models you have. That's where if I was Prime Minister tomorrow with Ozzie leading the country, that's what I would make the law. But we're not in that state at the moment. You have to register every firearm that you own. You have to prove why you need it. And now in WA, you're being capped by how many you can own under these new proposed laws. They're talking about a national firearm registry. They were using the incident that happened in Queensland as the trigger for this. Ozzie, can you talk through what you think about registration? What do you think of a national registry? And also, what did you think of them using the incident in Queensland as the catalyst for this?
So before I do, if we've got time, can I just touch on what we were talking about, or what Graham was talking about? Because I had what I think is, well, my view is quite valuable on this with regards to the views of shooters and that being used against them. If I can just take up a couple of
Yes.
minutes on that. So first of all, like, I agree with what Graham's saying. With a lot of legislation, when it's written, like, at times, and I have seen examples of this, it will seem like it's very overreaching, and you think to yourself, okay, well, this is the end of things. This is sort of doom and gloom. My view on that is the views or opinions of shooters being used against them. I've got, I'm on both sides with this, and what I mean by that is, I don't believe that just your straight out views will be used in every example. Sure, exactly what Graham was saying, like, people in the firearms registry are well known for going above and beyond the legislation and interpreting it the way they want to, and coming down like a ton of bricks on shooters. But my argument, like, for example, like, if I was in the position where I had a firearms license taken off me because of my views or opinions, I would, well, straight away be electing to go to court on that. And then in court, my argument would simply be based along the lines of, well, how in a democratic society are we going to get any changes? For example, if someone says, I believe the speed limits on the highway should be 130 kilometres an hour, not 100 or 110, depending on the state. They should all be 130 kilometres an hour. Well, is your view or opinion going to be used against you? Well, no, you're not saying you're going out there, you're going to break the law. All you're saying is that you believe that a law should be changed. And just like any other politician does when they meet with different stakeholders, they're getting various opinions from these stakeholders on what they would like to see changed. Hence why we have Parliament sit, and new laws discussed. So if the government was going to turn around and use views or opinions of people as a reason to silence them, well, we would get no changes. There would be nothing there. So my view on that, as it relates specifically to shooters, let's take the concealed carry that you raise there. Concealed carry. My view is that it should be legal for licensed law-abiding people to do. So does that mean I'm going to grab a handgun from my safe right now and cart it down the road when I'm going down to fuel up? No, it doesn't. It's just simply a view of mine that I believe that I would like to see that law changed. If it doesn't get changed, well, that's it. I continue to abide by the current laws that are in place. So that's where I'd like shooters to start thinking about. However, if you're online, and I have seen this previously, if you're online and you're saying, if someone breaks into my house, I don't care about the laws, I'm going to grab a gun and cut them in half, basically. Well, your view or your opinion will certainly be used against you under that new law. But if you're saying, as I gave the example of just previously there, well, if your view is simply, I would like to see semi-automatics, Category C, brought back to Category A for competition shooting, for example, for everyone. Is that going to be used against you? Well, no, that's just your view. You're not suggesting you're going to go and break the law. But if you make a comment or your view or opinion is directly with breaking the law, well, that's when you'd give them grounds to use that against you. So I'd like to just, like I said, I just really wanted to get that out there for people who are looking at this bill and going, geez, that's going to be the end of me saying anything online. Yes, be very aware of the different firearms registries trying to use anything against you. However, also be very aware that, you are entitled to have a view. You are, because otherwise that argument would be quite applicable in my view, because you wouldn't be able to change any legislation, because how would anyone raise anything that they want changed? I mean, how would anyone wanting to change any of the firearms legislation, how could they raise it if their view is against what the current legislation is? So that's my thoughts on it. So I hope that sort of makes sense.
Don't let them scare you. They're trying
Yeah.
to scare us into not
Mhm.
sharing our views because it goes
Mhm.
against what they believe in. Do not let them
100%.
silence you. Do not let them threaten you, threaten to take away your livelihood, your sport, your collection. Don't let them.
Mhm.
Say what you want to say it respectfully. Doesn't mean you're going to action it like Ozzie said, but don't let them silence you, because that's how they win. So thank you, Ozzie. That's
Yep.
really good point.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, sorry to sort of waffle on a bit about it, but I thought it was really applicable to sort of get that in there, because there'd be a lot of people worrying about that section.
Yes.
And look, I'm not a lawyer, but I would strongly suggest that people, if they had problems like that, seek the help of Suitors Union, who can put you in touch with lawyers who could argue on your behalf there. If you're not specifically saying you're going to harm someone or whatever, well, you should have a view. It doesn't mean that you're breaking the law. You just have a view that you believe the law should be changed. It doesn't matter what it is.
I know the other section that people are worried about too, sorry to digress just quickly, is the mental health requirements and the mental health checks, which is included in there. At the direction of the commissioner, you have to go on mental health treatment. So it's not, from my reading of it, it's not applicable to everyone. It's if they direct you to. That's how it's read at the moment. But they can direct everyone to if they wanted to. They can flood the already overworked mental health doctors and psychologists, which also don't want this. They don't want to sign off on someone saying, yep, they're good to have a license, only for the next day. As we know with mental health, it's not static, it's fluid. It changes on circumstance and things that happen in your life. And I've been contacted by a lot of mainly men who are concerned about PTSD. They've fought overseas for us, so they've got PTSD. Is that going to be used against them? Women, postnatal depression, are they going to take away our guns if that happens to us? So there are people worried about that section too. I'll just get your comments quickly on the mental health inclusion in the fit and proper person test. We are already under 24/7 review. They could take away our license if we have too many speeding fines, or if someone flags us as potential something happening. Ozzie, what do you think about the mental health requirements? Have you had any?
What about people that drive heavy vehicles? What about people that drive vehicles? Is everyone subjected to a mental health check when there is some sort of risk? Because if you scratch the surface hard enough, you'll find risk in all sorts of things, whether it be archery or out boating or fishing, whatever. There's going to be some risk there. So who does not get subjected to a mental health check? But this is the thing that a lot of people don't realise is police in various states and territories. I'm not over all the legislation outside of Queensland, but they've already got quite a lot of power. So the authorised officer equivalent here in Queensland, like if they're suspect that there's anything wrong mentally, they have the power to intervene as it is. So, there's a lot of legislation there that's already sufficient, in my view, if they want to go down that track and justify it with, look, someone's a risk to the community. But in saying that too, let's be fair. There's not one shooter that I know alive who, if someone was, for example, walking around the backyard, talking to themselves, saying they want to kill people and they were a legitimate threat, there's not one shooter that I know that wouldn't want police to intervene and stop that person from, accessing firearms or whatever it is. And that's the basis behind, licensing. So if I can transition into that next question that you asked me about registration. No, I don't agree with registration, because never anywhere in the world is it proven to solve crime. So my thoughts on it is you should only just have a license, or not even a license. I've said this before. What's the difference? You can go into a firearms store, and if they can conduct a live background check on you right there and then to prove that there's no mental health issues, that you're not a criminal, let's face it, we've got the technology to do it. Why does there have to be a formal license? Because it's null and void anyway with registration, because then you've got to pay a fee for a permit to acquire, which is just making the fact that you got a license null and void. Why do you even have the license? If you've got to go through a check every time you get a permit to acquire, what have we got a license for? That's supposed to be your ticket saying, hey, I'm a fit and proper person. But it's not. So this is where, people go, my God, I can't believe you're saying people don't need a license. Well, no, they don't, because if they apply for a license, what's the difference? You undergo the same background check. There's not like this special little computer that sits in the various registries for licensed shooters to do a check on. It's the standard computer system. So, Why is there an issue? Why does someone need to go through all these other, jump through all these other hoops for what purpose? If you had a live update where anyone from off the street, they come in and show either their a passport or more, I guess acceptable would be something to prove that they're a resident in the state, so a driver license, and that's scanned through the computer, so everything goes straight to the local, weapons licensing or firearms registry for an instantaneous check. That's all that should be required. As for registration, I mean, it's completely null and void in my view, because I've got two hands, right? So if I've got 20 firearms here, or two, what's the difference? I can't pick up any more than and use any more than two at a time. Let's really cut the BS here. So all this talk about, oh, this person's got 100 firearms registered. Yeah, okay. Are they going to carry 100 firearms at once? Are they? It's impossible. It's like saying to someone, oh, I've got 20 motor vehicles registered. Well, you can only drive one at a time. So if someone was going to be of ill intent and do something wrong with it, what are they going to do? You can't use any more at once. We've only got two hands. So all these arguments, I can't believe people get so caught up in it. I'm not saying you guys, but I mean, politicians and stuff like this, it's completely irrelevant in my view, because a person can't physically use all those firearms at once. So that's where it comes in, that they have firearms for, particular matches at the range, or, they've got certain firearms for controlling different pests and then hunting and all the rest of it. So long and short of it all, I don't believe in registration of firearms at all. And then people say, oh, well, that means someone could get a firearm and then sell it to someone. Yeah, well, even now they can, and it's, they can lend a firearm or give a firearm to a criminal if they really wanted to. But there are laws against that. Just like prior to 1996, the Weapons Act 1990, Graham will remember it, here in Queensland, we had a license that didn't expire, no photograph, and it was just open slather. You could buy your semi-autos, all your pump, semi-auto shotguns, semi-auto centerfire, the whole lot. And under that legislation, if you got a firearm, if you purchased a firearm and gave it to someone who wasn't licensed, you're committing an offence. So why does there need to be registration? I just don't see the point.
Graham, are you involved in this discussion about a national firearms registry on behalf of Shooters Union?
We have been, yes. And we're pretty implacably opposed to what's been proposed or what's planning. And people say, why? Well, here's the thing. As Ozzie's talking about registration, there's no evidence around the world that it prevents crime. However, in Australia, we've already got state registries. So each state already keeps those records. So people say, well, the reason for the National Register is so that a police officer in one state can instantly look. And I go, well, I agree. If you've got that information, it should be instantly available wherever, if someone looks it up. Now, if I'm driving my car and I drive over to see you in West Australia, Kate, and I get pulled up in South Australia on the way, by the time that officer gets out of her vehicle and walks up to my car, she knows my license is valid, what fines I've had, what speeding tickets. If my license is suspended, she knows whether I paid my registration, whether my insurance is up, all of that before she walks the 10 or 15 paces up to the car. Now, how do we do that? We must have an amazing central registry of cars. No, we don't. There is no central register of motor vehicles. There is no central register of driver's licenses. How does it happen? Magic? No. They simply have effing systems that talk to each other, which you could set up in 6 to 9 months for probably $8 to $10 million and be done with it. However, no, let's spend $250 million over the next 4 years because it's urgent and it's going to save lives and it's going to do all this. And it's been so urgent, we've been working on it since 96 and nothing's been achieved. Well, that's not true. There's been progress in that area, but it's not completed. But now it's urgent. So we'll spend $250 million and take 4 years. Oh, that's urgent. But we could spend 8 or 10 and have it in less than 12 months. No, why would we do that? That's silly. And then you get those tinfoil hat people that think this national register really actually might be a social credit system for shooters. But of course, we wouldn't suggest that. Just like it'd be irresponsible for me, the Australian told me I was irresponsible for suggesting that it'll possibly cost 400 or 500 million, because no government project ever costs what they tell you. Remember, they haven't started it yet. It's just a wild guess. Canada spent $1 billion and took 15 years, and it never functioned properly. And eventually the Canadian government said, enough, and scrapped the whole thing. And even when that government was tossed out a few years later, and Justin Trudeau, Mr. Anti-Gun himself, he's the poster child for anti-gunners around the world, even he hasn't attempted to bring it back. Why? Because the Canadian people said, enough, $1 billion in 15 years, you've had to play with it. They were asked over and over in Parliament, how many crimes did it solve in 15 years? And the RCMP said, 0. How many lives did it cost? An RCMP officer union said 4 officers that they could confirm had been killed because they had the wrong information when they went to houses. And they relied on that stupid, outdated, inaccurate registry. It's an old, centralised registries are a completely outdated concept in the digital age. You can track firearms very easily without an expense or much expense to the public. But we don't want to go down that way, so we're going to spend another 250, I'd suggest 400 million, and 4 years to get what? So you've got another list that sits on top of the state lists. Wow, that's a real achievement for public safety. I feel better already.
Not to mention the current databases are woefully inaccurate.
Garbage in, garbage out, Kate.
Yes. Now we've come up over an hour. I just wanted to finish up talking about the Queensland election. So it's an election year up in sunny Queensland. It's a one house government. There's no upper house in Queensland. You guys do it differently up there. You're lucky to have some pro shooters in the mix. You've got the Catters Party up there. I love the work of the Catter Boys. I'm very jealous. I wish we had them down here. What's the plan for Queensland? What's the biggest issue for shooters heading into the election? Obviously, you don't have WA's laws yet,
no,
but they should be at the back of your mind because it is Labor at the moment there. And, they'll point to W and say, oh, look, we'll just do that here. What's the plan?
I think it's fair to say that Labor would not be suicidal enough to try and bring in the West Australian laws prior to the election, although some of us here, at least it would unite shooters in opposition. But I don't think that's the case. However, we will see some anti-gun moves, and I think you'll see them in the next few weeks. I'm not at liberty to go into any detail because I sit on some things that are cabinet in confidence with the government, and even if I disagree with them, I've got to honour what I signed off for.
Is this because of what happened up there with that shooting? Is that still on everyone's mind?
Well, I think they've got their public statement out of that with the National Register. There's some little pieces about that, yes, but it's nothing genuine. It's all about Queensland right now has a big problem with youth, what they call youth crime. And it's very much in the news. There's been, unfortunately, people killed. A grandmother was killed in a shopping centre. In fact, probably less than 30 minutes from your place and my place. Ozzie, that was attacked by a gang of youths, as they say. These are 6'4", 17-year-olds. So I wouldn't like to take them on. However, that's on top of mind. So they're looking for press releases to show they're tough on crime, everything else, completely to be expected. That'll become an issue. I think, however, more the issue is that Labor is seen as a tired government with a lot of problems. How much the Liberal National Party, the LNP, is seen as the opposite, as an alternative, we'll have to see. But I think it's going to be a pretty close election. We do have a fantastic situation where there is 3 Katter Party members of the Queensland House of Parliament, and our hope is that after this election there'll be 5 or 6. There is also another excellent member of Parliament, named Steve Andrew, who's a One Nation member up in North Queensland as well, and he actually is a firearms dealer and pest controller himself, so he's well aware of the understanding. And so they're there, and there's some people within the Liberal National Party who are very aware of the issue and certainly on side philosophically. So our goal is to encourage people who are in the areas where good candidates, be it the Katters or independents or One Nation, if it's in that electorate run, is to get behind those guys and girls, support the heck out of them, get down to the voting booths, hand out how to vote, give them money, do whatever you got to do. Put a billboard up in your front yard if you got a paddock out near the highway. Do something, promote to get a better Queensland. We only have 1 House of Parliament. I don't particularly like that, but it's the reality we live with. And so what that does, though, it creates an opportunity, because historically, in the years since they abolished the upper house, which I think is about 60, 70 years ago, they abolished the upper house. We've only got the lower house. In those years, if you had 7 members of Parliament in your party, you would have held the balance of power over 90% of the time between that change and today. So if you can get a few people, they don't have to be in your electorate, and it's hard to get across to shooters because they want, well, I want someone in my electorate, and I live in inner city Brisbane. And you go, well, I hate to give you the bad news. Your choice is the Greens or Labor or the Animal Justice Party or the Double Greens. That's about your choices. So maybe you walk in there and go, none of the above on the form. I don't know what you do, but we can't change that. And people say, oh, I want Katters to run in every electorate. That's not a practical strategy, because it takes a massive organisation, massive money, and you end up with lower quality candidates. How about we just help these guys build a base of good representation for their communities, and we support them. We support good independents. We support a good One Nation candidate like Steve. Those people, and they're people that deal well for their communities. Or if it's an LNP candidate who's willing to stand up to his or her party and say, no, we're not going anywhere. I'm going, let's help them get in. Even if it was a Labor person who did that, let's help them get in. It's not about trying to just be partisan to one party. It's about working with people that work with us and that get us. They get our culture. Hey, we're the most concerned about public safety with guns, because who cops the crap every time something happens? And we had a classic incident, and I'll be quiet after this, I promise. Okay, but we had a classic incident in Sydney Friday. A guy walks into a lawyer's office and shoots him with a cut-down M1 carbine. That, for those who don't know, is a semi-automatic military rifle. In fact, it could be called the first assault rifle. And so it's been virtually completely banned since 1996. But let's get better. He also had a small handgun, which had never been registered, never licensed. Neither of the guns had. They had that. Oh, how did he get those? That's against the law. And it gets better. He had a firearms prohibition order against him. Now, and that's something they have in WA and in New South Wales and in a number of other states. That is a piece of hilarity, because it doesn't affect No one that qualifies for one would ever get a license anyway. But this is supposed to be that these people are being monitored all the time. Well, he wasn't monitored too well when he could go find himself a military semi-auto rifle and a handgun and walk in the center of the city in Sydney and pop his lawyer. Thankfully, the lawyer did not die and was very active lawyer, actually jumped on him after he shot him once. My point being is you're not going to stop bad people doing bad things. They're there, and the best thing you can do is make sure police aren't hamstrung to do something about bad people, but they also understand that most of the people out there are great people. And as you said before, about 3% of the violent firearms misuse is conducted by people that have a license. 97% is not. So this whole West Australian law change avoids addressing 98%, 97% of the problem. Gee, there's a great use of public time and money.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Graham, for the work that Shooters Union have done all around Australia and even WA with the doxing event. You were the first people that came out and got the lawyers on that. I am extremely grateful, and I know a lot of Western Australians are grateful for what you guys do. I know it's a very, East versus West culture sometimes, and we can be very parochial, but we are all shooters. We are all Australian, and these laws are not just going to affect WA. It is coming across the nation, and that's why we need to support each other. So please, if you'd like to join an organisation that you align with, Shooters Union, great principles. They're a principled organisation, have done a lot of great work over the years, being led by people like Graham. And Ozzie, thank you for all the work that you do. You are a superstar. I'm so grateful to call you my friend now. I can't wait to meet you. Lady Liberty's coming up to Queensland, boys. I've got to come with you guys with your election. I've got to get out of here before the state arrests me and throws away the key.
In saying that, I will add this very quickly. I've already had people contact me on my channel to tell me that weapons licensing here have rejected PTAs for calibers that are banned on that list in WA. So as for your statement, Kate, about, it's coming to the other states, yeah, it is. It's already coming. So guys, anyone who's watching this, get ready for it. I don't know how many times I've got to keep saying it, and I'm not going to repeat myself again. Your two options. You either do something about it, hand your guns in. If not, because that's what the two options are. Everyone must fight. And I agree with you, Kate. Like, I've known Graham for many years now, and the stuff that he's doing and everything, I mean, the majority of Shooters Union, apart from some, correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, some paid admin staff, these people are doing this because of their passion and love of firearms. Right. For God's sake, why would you get behind someone like that? You know what I mean? So anyone who's on the fence or whatever, help them out. I've done it in the past. Go by their website, drop them a donation, help them out, because it's time and money going to all these things and actually being the voice, going to Parliament, doing that. If seriously, I say this now, if we didn't have them, we would be screwed, especially here in Queensland, because I know numerous examples of what they have done. And that's why I do stand behind them.
Well said, Ozzie. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kate Fantanell, Lady Liberty, shooting the breeze. I'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching. See you next time.